Good morning, everyone. Today I want to share 10 true stories told to me by people who have been relentlessly harassed by others. Here is the definition of harass: to irritate or torment persistently, to wear out, exhaust. I have a different take on the behavior behind people who do the harassing. If you're a victim of this, please watch this video because I'm going to describe these 10 events, and I'm also going to describe my input as a life coach. In 2005, Sarah was trolled on an online blogging platform. She created a blog where she naturally gained a lot of followers. She was one of the top content writers for this particular blog platform. And in doing so, she came across a fellow blogger and she discovered she had been blogging longer, and there were certain rules you had to follow on this platform. She knew the rules very well, and she noticed that this person was making a dire mistake in his blogging. So she wanted to reach out to him and let him know so that way he wouldn't suffer any repercussions from the website. She gracefully reached out and sent him a private message and said, "Hey, I noticed you have a really good blog started. I've been doing this for so many years. I just wanted to share one thing that may help you because I don't know if you know this or not, but the blogging platform does not allow whatever it was." The blogger quickly dismissed Sarah's email message and pursued her relentlessly all over the blogs. Every upload regarding her renovation on her home, regarding the Sunday church service she spent with her children, regarding the potluck style family dinner she had at Aunt Barbara's the following weekend, it didn't matter. This person trolled her every single post, and he made the most horrific, diabolical comments that Sarah had ever seen. Sarah is a very sweet soul, and this scared her. She immediately reached out to the platform thinking, well, I'm one of the top creators. Surely they won't let this person harass me like this. She reached out. She sent them a message. She said, I have somebody harassing me on my blog posts. Every comment they make is very mean and rude, and is there anything you can do to stop this person from leaving these comments on my blog? Is there a way I can block them? This feature was not available on this particular platform. Pretty soon her followers noticed how scary it became. The man was leaving threatening statements, threatening comments. Unfortunately, this overwhelmed Sarah, and eventually she took down her entire blog. This was not a blog that paid money at the time, and her followers really enjoyed reading her content. When she took down her blogs, everyone came out and praised her and said how much they love her style, they love reading her blog content, and it was a shame that this person had harassed her relentlessly. Eventually, Sarah set up a brand new user ID and started blogging again, the same platform, but under a new account. She thought that this would get rid of the person trolling her. And she reached out to her followers and told them and said, please don't tell that person, but I'm over here now. I'm at this other user account. People followed her over there. But pretty soon, this troll found her. And this time, it wasn't just him that left horrible, indecent comments for her. This time, he had a friend pursue her as well. Relentlessly, the two would not stop posting derogatory comments and remarks on every single blog post she uploaded, simply because Sarah had a kind heart and offered this person advice which could eventually help him. She never meant harm, but this person took it way too far. For whatever reason, Sarah triggered and offended this person immensely. He instilled such fear into this woman that she eventually left that user account and started a third one. This time she went to a lawyer's office. She branded her identity in a business name. The lawyer helped her get all of the state certificates or whatever else she needed to become an actual licensed business in her state. Then she went back to the blog platform and started blogging under a business name without any reference to her name or email. Her followers were delighted. They followed her there. They were happy to see her again. They loved her content, and they were happy that this troll was not going to stop her from pursuing her writing. In my opinion, this type of person has a fear of rejection. Their brain snaps when they're confronted with something that they're doing, but that they think is okay to do. And when somebody points out, oh, hey, by the way, that's not allowed here on the platform, even though Sarah's intentions were pure, this person looked at her with rage and anger, because for a split second in the email she sent this person, that's how they felt when she said, you can't do that on this platform, just so you know. Hey, I'm looking out for you. They didn't take it like, hey, somebody's looking out for me. They took it as an attack. Story number 2 happened in 2011. This is regarding a sweet lady named Darlene. Darlene was brand new to social media. She had started working at an arts and crafts store, and she became a beloved sales associate by all in the community who loved to visit her and to get tips and tricks on making different crafts. She was extremely talented in the art of making greeting cards. She was also an artist. So she had a unique technique, and she presented the owner of this arts and crafts store with the idea of having her own hour of class time for guests. Anybody in the public could come and watch her make her greeting cards. Pretty soon, because of doing this craft time with all these guests, she had amassed a very large collection of her handmade greeting cards, and she thought, I'm going to sell these. She had never sold online before, but through the advice of some of her coworkers, they suggested she set up a Facebook account and connect it or reference an online store, such as an Etsy shop, to her Facebook, because they thought that that would get more traffic for her and get her known and spread the word about her greeting cards. And these were handmade, beautiful, lovely greeting cards. They're very unique. Pretty soon, she posted her first post on Facebook. She did not have a Facebook account prior to this, so she set it up in her own name. One of her relatives, who she never really associated with much, reached out on Facebook and then sent a friend request. Darlene was puzzled. She did not want to mix this with her personal life. She did not want relatives commenting on this page. This was just so she could connect it with her job and make a little money on the side, selling her wonderful works of art, just to recover the cost of her materials, recover the cost of her time, and maybe put a little spending money in her kids' piggy banks. She had 2 beautiful children. She was a single mother, and her arts and crafts job was her full-time work that paid her bills. This relative went on to pursue Darlene relentlessly. Darlene didn't know what to do at first. When she was first contacted, she ignored it. But this relative began emailing her over and over and over again. She didn't know what to do, so she reached out to other family members who were also not close to this relative. And she said, hey, I don't know what to do here. This person keeps contacting me. I don't want her to friend me on here. This is strictly for my greeting cards. I don't understand. And they said, oh, she's harmless. In fact, she has a lot of connections. Maybe she can help boost your visibility and offer to share some of your posts. Darlene thought about it and said, oh, I didn't think of that, but I don't do social media, so that makes sense to me. Every beautiful greeting card had a comment from this relative. Where are your kids? Why aren't you watching your kids? Don't your kids come first? What's happening with them? Darlene's children were school age. They were in school at the time she was making these posts. She was also working during the day, during school hours. Also, she could make ends meet, but this relative wouldn't stop. This saddened Darlene greatly. She reached back out to the other relatives and said, "What is wrong with this person? What is she doing?" And they said, "You know what? We're going to contact somebody that is close to her and tell them to make it stop." She went on to continue to post. And the next time this relative posted, it was even worse. This relative knew that the other people went and talked about her behind her back. And she started making the worst posts. Darlene eventually took down her Facebook page. The woman didn't stop there. She went into her place of employment and told them that Darlene was a sick, terrible person. They fired Darlene because of this relative who, for some reason, with fire and fury, wanted to take Darlene down. And there was no reason behind it. Do you have a relative in your life that has targeted you for unknown reasons and just can't be happy with what they have? They have to just tear everybody else down around them? This person is truly a thief. They steal your happiness. They steal your faith. They steal your mindset. They steal your joy. They did not bond to their mother. This type of person is so miserable, and it stems from their birth. Story number 3 is about a gentleman named Stephen who was retirement age, and after owning an antique store in his hometown for many, many years, he made the decision to retire. After a while, after taking some much needed time to rest and then vacation with his spouse, they made the decision to start selling online. One such item Stephen listed in his vintage store online was an antique, over 100-year-old beaded purse. These beads were intricately sewn onto the purse fabric. There were no loose threads. All of the beads were intact. It had a little fringe at the bottom with glass beads dangling down. It had a closure that had no rust or other visible signs of wear. The interior was lined with satin, had no stains, and the zipper inside the pocket still worked. Stephen didn't know the history of this purse. However, he knew that it was pretty valuable, but it was also pretty delicate. Being 100 years old, he would prefer that it go to a buyer who would appreciate such an antique. As with all of his listings, he put prominently that this was, in fact, a used item. It was antique, and it was very delicate. It was delicate in nature due to the age of the piece, as well as the glass beading around the entire purse. A customer reached out and asked him if the product was new. Stephen was surprised by this because his listing, in fact, did say it was a used antique item. He reached out to the potential buyer and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I must not have clarified that well in my description. This purse is used. It is 100-year-old or more. It is an antique, and it's covered in small glass beads." He said, "It's a real beauty." The buyer wrote back and said, "I'm looking for a purse for my daughter. She's in high school and she's going to a prom." And he wrote back cautiously and said, "While this would make a lovely purse for an event such as a prom, I highly recommend that you do not buy this purse for a prom event. It's delicate. This is a purse to be cherished. It's a purse to maybe put on display or hang in your closet. But any kind of rough housing or maybe, slamming down on a table or wearing to an event which can get rowdy may damage the beading on the purse. So if you're going to spend this kind of money, I would caution you about it and perhaps get something that's not antique or a purse without glass beading. The potential buyer wrote back and said, "Great, I'll take it." He packaged it with care. He gracefully wrapped it in tissue paper. He then put it in a small white box like you would see an article of clothing in, and he wrapped it with a satin red bow. He then placed it between layers of bubble wrap and put it in a larger box, taped it up, and shipped it out. And to his surprise, he received an email from the buyer who said, "I just want you to know I filed a not as described claim because this purse is used." Stephen, puzzled, couldn't understand why the buyer said that when of course it's used. He told her that in a prior email, and he also made it very clear in his listing, this purse is used. It's an antique. It's over 100 years old. He couldn't imagine what happened and how the buyer got confused about this. He reached out to the buyer and he said, "Well, I told you it was used." And she said, "No, what you told me was that it was vintage. Vintage doesn't necessarily mean used." And she went on to explain that she thought it was inspired by vintage. And he said, "No, that can't be possible. I was clear about what I said, and I was clear in my description to you. This is an antique purse. I even said it over and over again to you." Well, after all was said and done, the buyer won the claim and demanded that he refund her. Stephen's concern was that she could get a refund and keep the item. So he said to her, "I really would like the purse back." And she says, "Oh, I have no problem with that." He sent her packaging to return the item to him, and he paid the postage to return it. When he got the purse back, he was heartbroken. The purse was shattered. The glass beads were now ripped from their delicate sewing threads. They were no longer attached. They were hanging off. The satin exterior was covered, just simply covered in stains, as if it had been set down in a puddle of coffee. The fringe, some of it was still hanging loosely, but others had been ripped away from the bottom of the purse. The clasp no longer closed, the inside zipper pocket no longer zipped, and the interior lining was not only stained, but there were lipstick stains as well as tears in the actual lining. He thought to himself, this can't really be the same purse. This must be a different purse. He reached out to the buyer and said, "I did receive a purse, but is this the purse I sent you? Because the purse I sent you was in immaculate condition, just like I described in the listing." And this buyer went on to tell him that no, that's how she received it, in horrible condition, and her daughter's prom was ruined because he sent her this trash purse knowing full well it was for a nice event for her daughter in high school. He no longer felt like selling anywhere. He was completely gutted. In all his years of running an antique store, he had never seen anyone do anything like this. Not until he went online. My thoughts about a person like that, I believe this customer was never taught right from wrong. I believe they had an immature parent, and that immature parent wasn't parent enough to teach their child empathy. This next story may be sensitive for some viewers. Viewer discretion advised. In 2014, a 9-year-old in a small town created an account online posing as a teenager boy to threaten and harass classmates. With the help of an older cousin, she sat behind her computer screen at night when she came home from school, she pursued little girls, unsuspecting. One such little girl was having a hard time because her friend had moved away. She had had this friend since preschool, and now, being in 4th grade, she was still saddened when her friend left in grade 3. This 9-year-old took advantage of that. One day, she approached the little girl and said, "My cousin is coming over tonight, and we're going to get on the computer and play games. Do you have FaceTime?" And the little girl said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Okay, we're going to call you tonight." And the little girl says, "Oh, that will be fun. I have to ask my mom, but yeah, I don't see why not." Shortly before the FaceTime call was to come in, the little girl got a notification that there was a little boy that wanted to talk with her. His picture was a little boy dressed nicely, standing by a really nice car. And he said that he was moving into the area and wanted to meet her. He was going to be going to her school. The little girl said, "Oh, that will be fine." But she realized it was getting time for the FaceTime call. So she went out to the kitchen and asked her mother if it was okay if she FaceTimed with her friends from school. Being that she was only 9, her mother said, "Well, who were you FaceTiming with?" And she says, "Oh, just some girls from school in my class." The mother, thinking this was harmless, said, "Well, I'm going to be right here, and when the call starts, you let me know so I can come in and see who you're talking to." And the little girl agreed. Shortly after, the mother, sitting on the couch in the living room, just one room away from the little girl's bedroom, heard a gut-wrenching scream and sobbing. The mother went to the little girl's room to see what was going on, and then she saw the horrific images on the screen in front of the little girl. They called her names. They shared screenshots of her picture from FaceTime and posted them on different platforms. There were these online platforms at the time when this occurred in 2014, and these platforms, I don't even know if they're in existence today because I've never heard of them. But they were posted all over the internet. They used her real full name with her real picture. The mother was incensed. She went up to the police station immediately with her daughter. She showed the police officers what took place. And to her dismay, the police would not intervene. She says, this is criminal. I want the parents and I want this girl arrested." And the police said, "Well, your daughter's in 4th grade. There's nothing we can do about it. She has to go through the school." And the mother said, "This didn't happen at school. It happened right here in my house." And the police said, "Those are the rules. You have to contact the principal of the school, and at this hour, you'll have to wait until the morning." Well, the mother didn't leave this to fate. She immediately contacted all of the websites and demanded that her daughter, who was 9 years old and a minor, all of the information be taken down about her. She also tried to search for the parents of this other little girl, who the police wouldn't give her any information. The next morning, first thing, she went to her child's school. She kept her child out of class that day and went to school first thing. She met with the school psychologist and the principal, and she explained, "My daughter is being crudely harassed and stalked, and I've spent all night with the police and trying to get the pictures taken off the line. My daughter is 9 years old." And the school psychologist said, "Wow, this is really strange. I've never seen anything like this in all my years for somebody so young." And the mother said, "Well, then do something about it, or I will." The school psychologist immediately tried to contact the parents of the little girl that did this. The parents did not respond. She sent them several emails warning them about the dire consequences of this. They still did not respond. In the meantime, the mother started receiving good news. The websites where her daughter's pictures were blasted everywhere were taking down those posts. The mother wanted answers, and she wanted this little girl to be accountable for what she did. Her daughter was so distraught and traumatized, she ended up in therapy. The mother went to the school psychologist. I demand an investigation. The school said they were under no obligation to tell her anything about the little girl or the little girl's parents. Now imagine if you are an adult and you're bullied. But imagine if you're 9. What kind of toll would that take on you? Throughout the years, the mother was relieved to see her daughter flourished despite the bullying she witnessed her daughter go through. When children are involved, it's a totally different ball game. Adults can make their own decisions. We choose the way we behave. We choose our actions. When somebody's only 9 years old, while it may seem they have a choice in this life, do they really? Usually, children that act out like that, it's a cry for help. Interestingly enough, the rest of the stories I'm about to share all happened after COVID. This is story number 5. In 2023, Stephanie was working for a retail store. One particular Sunday, Stephanie was behind the cash register stocking bags for the day when a customer and his wife walked in. They walked around for a few minutes, browsed the selection of products neatly stacked on shelves, and then finally made their way to the cash register and asked Stephanie for her opinion. Stephanie came out from behind the cash register and walked up to the couple and asked what she could help with. And the man said he was there with his wife shopping for a gift, but the recipient had some allergies. Stephanie said that they had some hypoallergenic products, and she showed them a shelf with those products on it. The man decided he wanted to call the gift recipient and make sure before they made a purchase that it would be okay to buy those for this person. At this time, he proceeds to make a call on speakerphone right there at the hypoallergenic shelf. 4 or 5 more couples walked in the door, and this was typical for a Sunday. It wasn't too crowded. It was just enough. And Stephanie greeted each couple and asked if she could help any of them. And she said, "If you have any questions, I'll be right over here." And she stood off to the side and watched everybody and made sure nobody needed her help. But she would be there if anyone did. Finally, the man with his speakerphone still on, talking to whoever it was, called her over. Stephanie goes over there. At the same time, she passed by some of the couples, and they were just shouting out questions at her, which she was answering with ease, gracefully and easily, just telling them the answers. And they were satisfied, and they kept browsing. She made it over to the man and his wife. While he was still on speakerphone, she started talking to this gift recipient who would be receiving a product without the allergens she was allergic to. So Stephanie started having a heartfelt conversation with her, trying to figure out what would be safe for her in this scenario. When another customer walked through the door, saw the couple talking to Stephanie, walked directly up to Stephanie, bumped into her purposely, not by accident. This was a large area and it was very open. And when Stephanie kind of swaggered sideways, the customer did not apologize. The customer did not even acknowledge that she had just rammed Stephanie. She just walked away in a huff to look at products. amongst the other multiple couples that were there also looking around. Stephanie was busy with this couple talking to their loved one on the telephone when they finally made their final selections. She offered to bring the items to the cash register, and they gracefully accepted. She put them in her arm. They were small items, and she carried them up to the cash register counter. She then turned around to look at everybody else in the store, and she asked if anybody needed help. Several of the customers that had already been there said no thank you, they were all set, and they left. The one person that was still there with this couple was the woman who barged into her when she arrived at the store. And Stephanie made it a point to say to her, "Do you need any assistance, ma'am, after I ring up this customer?" And the woman didn't answer her. She didn't reply at all. She just kept her back turned to Stephanie. Stephanie rang out the customer, they paid, and they left. And as they were leaving, this customer followed them out of the store and stopped at the entrance. The couple had already gone through. There was nobody left in the store at this time. And Stephanie stood in front of the cash register and she said, "Have a nice day, ma'am." And the woman turned around and she said, "This was the rudest experience." And Stephanie says, "Oh, I'm sorry." And the woman says, "I'm reporting you." And she walked out the door. Stephanie, being afraid, "What? I've managed a store by myself always. I've never had a problem. What is this woman talking about?" So she texted her boss, who normally took Sundays off. And she said, "Rick, I'm so sorry to bother you, sir, but I just had this awful customer, and this is what she said to me. I just want to give you a heads up in case she goes through and reports me." And Rick says, "I wouldn't worry about it. I'm the one that gets the reports." Unbeknownst to her, Rick was going on vacation on Monday. The assistant manager from a different location came in to supervise that Monday. Stephanie came in with her mom because they wanted to browse some of the latest products. The assistant manager looked up and saw Stephanie, knew who she was, they had met before, and he said, "Stephanie, we received a complaint about you." And Stephanie was mortified. She just wanted to do a good job. She was very self-conscientious. Her mother heard this and was like, "You received a complaint about Stephanie?" And the assistant manager said, "Yes." Stephanie's like, "Well, can I read it?" And he says, "No, I have to send it to higher ups. I can't let you see it." And Stephanie's like, "Well, if it's about me, I should be able to see it. I'm sorry, that's not how we do things. It has to go through processing, and the higher ups have to review it." Stephanie was mortified. She's like, "Well, why'd you even bother telling me about it? I thought you would already have known what you did with your attitude." And Stephanie said, "What, my attitude? I'm sorry, sir, but I don't understand what you're talking about. I've been nice to everyone." Just then, a customer who had been browsing on Sunday walked in the store. And she said to Stephanie, "I was here yesterday and you were so kind and you helped me." And Stephanie says, "Yes, I remember you." And she said, "I came back to buy that candle you recommended." And Stephanie says, "Oh, right this way." She goes, "I'm actually not working right now, but I can certainly help you." And the assistant manager noticed she wasn't a problem employee at all. She was very gracious and kind. She was even helping another customer on her day off. Now the complaint just didn't make sense. What on earth, he thought. The customer bought the candle that Stephanie recommended, and then she left. And Stephanie said, "See, this is how I am with all customers. The lady came back because of me. Why would you say I have an attitude problem?" He says, "You're right, Stephanie, I'm sorry." He says, "Well, according to this letter, wow, this lady was really upset with you." A couple weeks went by, and the man with his wife that had been on their cell phone, on the speakerphone, they came back in. And they accused Stephanie of not ordering some things that they bought when they were there. And Stephanie remembered them quite well. It wasn't just the fact that it was the day the woman was so rude to her, but it was also the people stood up at the front of the store on speakerphone. So she could clearly recall what happened with these folks. And she remembered bringing the items to the counter at the register. And she says, no, we talked with your loved one and they picked out some hypoallergenic products and I brought them to the register and we wrapped them up and you took them in a bag after you paid. And they accused her of not ordering additional products that they had placed an order for. And she said, well, do you have a receipt? Because I'm so sorry, I don't recall that. Stephanie's manager, Rick, was there at the time, and he came out from the little office off to the side from the register. And he says, hello, folks. I'm the manager of this store. Is there anything I can help you with? And they explained that when they were there a couple weeks ago, Stephanie told them that she would order several of this other product that wasn't in stock on the shelf. And Rick said, well, let me look into this. What, do you have an account number? Do you have a receipt? Do you have anything that suggests she was supposed to order this for you? He said, no, we told her we wanted it and she said she would order it. And Rick said politely, well, that's not how it works though. If you ordered something, she would have given you a receipt. But anyway, let me check into it. I can go back in the computer. And you said it was about 2 weeks ago. Stephanie knew the exact date. And Rick looked through all of the receipts for that day into the computer system. And the only receipt he could find were for the products that they bought that were hypoallergenic. So he tells them and he shows them proof. Look, this is what you bought, but there's no order for anything. He says, we have a complete procedure for that. So if you had ordered something, we would have a form that you'd fill out with what you wanted, and then we would order it, but you have to pay first. So the fact that there's no receipt, there's no payment, there's no form, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, but we can definitely place the order today. And the man freaked out. The man started hooping and hollering like there's no tomorrow. It scared Stephanie. Stephanie's like, oh my goodness. So she took a step back while Rick tried to calm the man down. But there was no talking reason to this man. This man was belligerent, violent, rude, condescending. Rick finally said, I'm so sorry it wasn't ordered. If you want it, we can order it right now and I can put a rush on it free of charge to you. But if not, I guess that's the end of the business here and you can feel free to leave. And that's what the customers did. They ended up walking out. And while they were walking out, the man turned around and said, oh, Stephanie, by the way, you remember that customer that filed a complaint against you? She was the one that rammed you when she came in. And Stephanie looked at him in shock, like disbelief. What? And he says, yeah, that's my aunt. And you were extremely rude to her. Don't ever ignore my family again. And he left. Stephanie had never seen these people before. And that day, that Sunday, those were the only times that she'd ever had seen any of those people. Story number 6. In 2023, Lewis worked in an office building on the ground floor at the front desk, greeting customers, answering phones. Lewis was a disabled veteran and he was wheelchair bound. But his employer had made modifications so that he could wheel himself around the desk and fit under it perfectly. One particular day, while he was working, someone came from across the street, which was visible from his desk. The building across the street was very much like the building he worked in. This gentleman came in and he was wearing jeans, a baseball cap, and a hoodie. He approached the desk where Lewis sat. Lewis said, "May I help you, sir?" The man, wild-eyed and crazed, looked directly at Lewis and said, "I see you have an American flag out front of your building." The building was not owned by the company Lewis worked for. The building was a rental. The flag sat in the parking lot on a flagpole in the middle of a circular flower garden. This was something the landlord had put in, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the business in the building. Lewis looked at the man and said, "Oh, yes, we have the American flag, but that's owned by the landlord of the building. We didn't put that out there, sir, but thank you for noticing." The man, not realizing Lewis was a disabled veteran, bent down and very rudely said to Lewis that he better make sure that the flag is fixed, or he would be going above him to his manager. So Lewis said, "Oh, I see there's a misunderstanding here, sir. We have nothing to do with the flag. It's the landlord. It's the landlord's flag. We only rent space here in this building. That's not part of the building. It's out in the parking lot. So you'd have to get in touch with the landlord. But I can get the manager to come down if you want that number, because I don't have that number." Once again, the man bent down and rudely said in a threatening tone that Lewis better fix the flag or else. And the man turned and walked out the door. Lewis was dumbfounded. He didn't even know what was wrong with the flag. He turned around in his wheelchair, wheeled himself out the door into the parking lot, and looked up at the flag. The flag did have minor damage. There was a little bit of fraying. He wheeled himself back in under his desk and he called the manager. Lewis told the manager about the ordeal and that he noticed the flag does have a little bit of damage on it, and maybe they should call the landlord and have him change it out or take it down. The manager assured Lewis that it was just some whack job out there and don't worry about it, he won't come back. He was just being a jerk. Lewis says, "Well, I don't know. People take pride in the American flag. I'm a veteran, dude. I don't know. Maybe this man is going to come back." And the manager said, "Don't worry about it, Lewis. Just go back and do your job. And if the man comes back, let me know." Lewis said, "Okay." And in the morning he returned. And once again, he sees the man crossing the road from the other building, coming over. Now, the other building had nothing to do with the company that Lewis worked for. So Lewis didn't understand where the man was coming from or why he kept coming from that other building. So this time the man came in. The man was more aggressive about it and told Lewis he was going to personally hold him accountable until that flag was fixed. Lewis said, "Once again, man, you're coming in here attacking me about this, and it's not me that you need to talk to. It's a landlord. I don't know who that is. You're going to have to talk to my manager, but my manager said he'll talk to you." The man berated Lewis. He continued to tell him, "What is wrong with you? This is the American flag. You need to take pride in the flag. You shouldn't let it get frayed. There are rules and laws about the flag and displaying a flag." And Lewis didn't dare say he knew all that. He was a veteran. He didn't have to be scolded on this. But once again, he said, "You know what, sir? I'm just going to call the manager." So he called the manager for help. Unfortunately, the manager wasn't in. So Lewis sat there alone while this man berated him. Lewis felt helpless. The man left once again, and Lewis this time watched where he walked to. The man went down around the back of the building. He couldn't see where he went from there, but he knew that the other building didn't have parking in the back. It was only a dumpster. So he called the building manager. The building manager answered, and Lewis explained what was going on and asked the building manager if he would mind taking a look to see where this guy went after the dumpster. The building manager assured Lewis he would look into it, and he did, and he called back, and he said, "Lewis, there's no sign of this man. He must have walked through the woods. I don't know where he went, because after the dumpsters is just woods for about 6-7 miles. So anybody's guess is where this man went." Lewis was dismayed. He just hoped the man didn't come back. The next day, Lewis got to work, wheeled his wheelchair under the desk, and lo and behold, here comes the man once again, on foot from that building. But this time, Lewis was asking the questions, not the man. He said, "Sir, you've been in here 3 days in a row, and I have told you relentlessly, I am not the person you need to talk to. I do not own the building. I only work here. I'm just the front desk person. I've offered to get you the manager. There is a guy that owns the flagpole, and it's not us. He's the landlord here. We aren't going to touch the flag." And then he said this, "I also noticed that you're walking from around the back of the building over there." And the man said, "Yeah, that's where I've been watching you from. Every day, I sit there and watch as the flag waves in tatters." Lewis recognized that this may be some form of PTSD, and he wasn't sure what to do. So he reached out and tried the manager again. And this time the manager answered. And he said, "Sir, I have this man here again, and he wants the flag taken down or fixed. And he won't leave until it is. And he said he's been watching me every day. And to be honest, sir, he's freaking me out." This time the manager came downstairs. He saw the man standing there with anger in his face and outrage. The manager said, "Sir, I understand that you've been coming in every day. That's not appropriate. Lewis only watches the front door for customers and answers phones. His job is not to take care of the flag or the flagpole, but I can give you the name of the landlord if you would like to speak to him about it, because that's the owner of the flagpole and the flag." The man became visibly angered, more so than Lewis had ever seen. And he said, "I am going to the news and I'm going to the TV stations right now. I have given you people ample opportunity to take care of that flag, and you refuse to do so. So I'm going to tell them what you're doing, and they are going to come out here, and I hope your business suffers." And with that, the man turned and left. Lewis was gutted. What? He turned around to his manager. He said, "What are you going to do? This is ridiculous. I'm being stalked here, and nobody seems to be doing anything to help me." The manager assured him he would reach out to the landlord. Well, it turned out that the landlord was on vacation. He wasn't in the area. Lewis thought about it and decided, hey, I bet the fire department will help if they can just take the flag down for now. He told the manager about his idea, and the manager thought that was brilliant. He said, "Lewis, why don't you make the call? That's a brilliant idea." So Lewis called the closest fire department to the office building, which was about a mile away. The fire department said, "Well, we have different jurisdictions, and even though we are the closest fire department to your building, we are not the fire department that comes out in the event there's a fire. The fire department that services your building is actually 3 miles away on this street." Lewis couldn't believe it. The fire department that serviced them was 3 miles away, and there was a fire department a mile away. He just couldn't believe that. So he called them, and he told them who he was. And he said, "Do you come out and fix flags on a flagpole?" And they said they would, but only under certain circumstances. Lewis was like, "Oh no, I don't know what to do." And here comes the guy again. This time, the guy came with such rage. Lewis actually feared for his life. The guy now leans into Lewis with fists clenched and demands that Lewis get the flag off of the pole today or else. And with that, Lewis rolled his wheelchair backwards away from the desk where the man could see that Lewis was in a wheelchair. At this time, the man wasn't sympathetic, but his attitude did change towards Lewis. It became apparent to Lewis that all this time, the man thought Lewis was going to scale the flagpole and get the flag down. The problem here was when there's a flag on a flagpole, there's like a pulley where you can lower the flag, and it was broken. So there was no pulley. Instead, where a pulley would be, there was like a mess of rope and knots and tied around the pole, and it was a ridiculous mess, and the manager couldn't even figure it out. Eventually, the landlord came. He hired somebody with a bucket truck that came out and was able to free the flag from the top of the pole and take it down, where to this day, the flagpole remains empty. My thoughts about this particular man: very angry, very controlling, very confrontational, and violent. That would suggest to me one of two things. It is possible this man suffered an injury or has PTSD from the military, if he actually ever served in the military. But the second thing is, he was most likely raised by a very abusive father who probably demanded perfection, beat him senselessly, and whether or not he was in the military wouldn't have made a difference in the outcome of this story, because having that as part of your upbringing would cause behavior like this in a person later on. Story 7. This involves a lovely lady named Mary. She worked in a department store. This store sold a little bit of everything, including housewares, bath items, kitchen gadgets. Mary's department was kitchen gadgets. One day, a gentleman came in and he was browsing an aisle with bath accessories. The employee managing bath accessories was not in that day. Mary saw the man getting visibly frustrated in the aisle and thought it would be best to help him, even though that was not her department. She walked over to the gentleman and said politely, "Hi there, how may I help you today, sir?" The man turned around and looked at Mary and he said, "I have a fitting on my bath wall and it needs a certain product to fix it." And Mary said politely, in her little checkered dress and flat shoes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm not a plumber. I really don't know much about that stuff. It's just what we sell on the shelf." And obviously she felt very awkward because she wasn't able to help the man. And at that moment, she wished she hadn't even tried. And the man proceeded to show her picture after picture on his phone. And Mary said, "Oh, sir, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what you're showing me. I have very, very limited knowledge. My department is kitchen gadgets. I haven't even seen the items you're talking about before, but we don't sell those things here. We sell like grab bars and toilet seats, but I've never seen plumbing fittings. Perhaps try a place like a hardware store." Mary knew of 4 hardware stores in town that this man could go to, but this man insisted on making Mary look at his photos. And Mary said, "Well, sir, I appreciate you showing me these photos. I do, very much. However, I can't help you, but perhaps we can go to the courtesy desk and they can call for a manager to help you. I'm sure somebody here knows what these are and maybe able to guide you to the correct store to buy them." The man became outraged. He took his anger out on Mary, shouted at her at the top of his lungs, attracted attention from other customers simply walking by the aisle, and pretty soon a manager came out from the back who was going to be delivering a load of kitchen gadgets for Mary to stock on the shelf, and he heard the man shouting. Mary was a top employee, never late, always on time, always ready to help a customer, and he could not believe somebody was shouting at her. He walked up to offer his assistance. "Hello, sir, how can I help you today?" And he said, "I'm looking for this." And he showed the manager, and the manager said, "Oh, sir, I see what you have here are some plumbing fittings. We don't sell those here. We only sell, we have one silver hand towel holder. We have a toilet plunger, a toilet seat cover, but we don't have what you're looking for. You'd have to go to a specialty, like a hardware store for that." The man became irate once again. This time he turned around and lunged at Mary. With his hands at his side, he lunged with his face and started screaming into her face. Mary started to cry. Her bottom lip quivered, her eye teared. And she looked at this man in disbelief. And she walked away and went back to her aisle in kitchens and started opening the boxes the manager had wheeled out on the cart for her to stock on the shelves. The manager took the man up front, talking to the man, all the while really overseeing the man get out the door. My take on this story is this is a misogynist individual who learned at an early age to hate women. This is story number 8. In 2025, Mike is selling on eBay. He primarily sells poker chips, card games, and the like. Mike had a few vintage decks of cards for sale. He also ran a local antique shop in the town where he lived, and some of the stuff he put up on eBay, these particular sets of cards were more than 50 years old. These card games had been used, so they weren't in mint condition or anything, but they were complete. One day, Mike received a message from an eBay buyer who also happened to be an eBay seller. Mike read the email, and the email said the buyer had a vintage deck of playing cards. They were gold foil backed, and he was missing one of the cards from the deck, and that was the only card he needed to complete the set. The card he needed was an ace. He asked Mike if Mike would sell him just the ace from his deck. Mike thought about it for a minute and thought, wow, that's pretty brazen. I have a complete set. Why am I going to break up my set? What's in it for me to break up my set? So he thought about it, and he thought, well, you know what? I would take dollars for the whole set if he wants the whole set. So he wrote the man back and said, my set is complete. I don't need to sell just one card from it. However, would you like to make an offer? I'm very reasonable, and then you can have the whole set. The man wrote back and demanded that Mike sell him just that one card that he wanted. So Mike responded again and said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sell you just one card out of my complete deck. And the man this time didn't ask. He demanded, you are going to sell me that one card because that's all I need. And I'm going to only pay you $1, which includes the postage to send it to me. Well, Mike knew that's not possible. So he started looking at the man's account. He realized the man had been selling on eBay since year 2000. He had over 14,000 feedback, and he mostly sold used sports equipment. So it just didn't fit. Like, why in the heck did he want this one card? So then he thought, oh, well, maybe it's a gift. Maybe he has a deck of cards that he wants to give to a brother, dad, relative. So he's just trying to complete his set. He wrote back and he said, well, look, In order to sell just one card out of the set, now I have to take pictures of just that one card. And I have to secure it and ship it ground. The buyer reached out again and said, fine, I'll pay you $3 for your trouble and your bubble mailer. Well, Mike knew that wouldn't even cover the postage, because with the bubble mailer he had, it would cost more plus the eBay fees. He wrote to the buyer and he said, I'm going to take a loss on this no matter the way you look at it, but it surprises me that you would even ask as another seller. And the buyer proceeded to berate him, telling Mike how connected he is, how many other sellers he knows. He has a huge platform. He could really do him harm. He could have his followers on social media do him harm. So, unfortunately, Mike took the chance. He took that one card out of his complete deck. He photographed every angle, every corner. The card the buyer wanted actually had a small stain on it. He wrote the buyer with the pictures. He said, these are the pictures, but I have to warn you, the card does have a stain on it. And the buyer said, well, I have to take what I can get now, don't I? And Mike said, well, I don't know why you're doing this, because I looked on eBay and there were like 4 other sets that aren't even complete. You could ask them to do it, but mine is complete, so I don't even know why you're asking this of me. And the buyer said, because I can. Mike, being alarmed by this, went ahead and agreed to the sale of the one card. He sent it the next day at the post office with tracking. 4 days went by. The buyer sent Mike an irate message. Where is it? It's lost. It's not here. Mike couldn't understand. He went up on the tracking, and sure enough, in those 4 days, the item went from his state to about 4 other states, turned around, and was back in his state. He had never seen anything like this. He just couldn't believe it. He wrote to the buyer, I'm so sorry. Apparently, it did get lost. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm refunding you in full. He refunded the buyer. He never heard from the buyer again. Then he filed a dispute with the mail carrier and said, how did this happen? What's going on with the package? He received word that the package was finally delivered. But the package was intercepted, and the reason it came back to Mike's state is because the buyer lived in Mike's state. So the address the buyer provided to Mike was not correct in the beginning, and it was intercepted, but it did ultimately make it to the buyer. And Mike was out his time, the postage, then he had to refund. What a hassle. My take on this is some of these selling platforms make it too easy for sellers to get scammed. There are things in place to protect sellers, but it's always been buyers have more protections, no matter what the selling platform is. That's how it seems to me. So in this case, I think it's someone that bullies others because they know they can and can get away with it. This brings me to story number 9. In 2025, Kelsey was going through her baby's clothing. She discovered she had a lot of clothing that the baby had outgrown. She was having tea with her cousin, and her cousin said, I've been selling my old baby clothes on this new selling platform. Kelsey said, oh, do you make good money at it? She's like, not bad. What I make, I buy new clothes with, so it evens out. Kelsey says, I'm going to try that. So the two got together. Kelsey's cousin helped her set up a shop. I don't know if it was like Poshmark or one of these selling platforms. In one particular instance, she had a summer romper. The summer romper was two-tone in color. The top of it was white, with little tiny pink flowers. The bottom romper part was solid pink. Kelsey made sure when she uploaded a photo that it looked right on her phone, that the photo matched on the phone to the actual item in person, because her cousin had said once or twice the colors didn't come out clearly. This woman contacted Kelsey shortly after she listed this white and pink romper. The potential buyer asked Kelsey to send pictures in better lighting. She claimed that the colors looked off to her and she couldn't really see what they were. She had a hair piece that she was trying to match to the outfit. So Kelsey replied, confused, well, it's pink. She goes, in fact, I have the item right in front of me, and when I look at my cell phone and look at the picture I took, comparatively, it's the same thing. That did not satisfy this potential buyer. At 9 o'clock that night, after Kelsey had just gotten her baby down, she went to bed and her phone started ringing. At first, she was upset with herself for not shutting off the phone. But then she realized it was the app. That was the noise, the jingle the app was making. And she looked at her phone like, who could be contacting me at 9 o'clock at night? And it was this potential buyer again. And the buyer said, I want to buy this outfit, but I'm not unless you take better pictures. Kelsey, taken back by this, was like, what in the world? So she wrote back and said, I am so sorry. I'm in bed right now. It's late here. I don't know where you are, but it's like after 9 o'clock here. So when I get up in the morning, I will take pictures and I will send them to you because I'm waiting for daylight. The potential buyer, seemingly pleased with this answer, replied again and said, okay, thank you. I will wait. Morning came. Kelsey raced outside with the outfit. It was a beautifully perfect sunny day. She happened to have some very vibrant pink roses in her garden, and she thought that the contrast of the dark pink roses against the light pink on the fabric of the baby outfit would help the potential buyer see the color of the pink. So she took pictures near her rose bush. As soon as she could, she went back in the house, uploaded the videos, and sent them off before her baby woke up. She did not hear from the potential buyer. She went ahead and added those photos to her listing as well, so that other potential buyers could see that she added new photos in better lighting. After she got the baby up for the morning and fed her and did her morning routine with baby, the baby was going down for tummy time, and Kelsey took her phone out, once again comparing the new photos to the outfit, and it was an exact match. The pinks matched on every single photo. There was absolutely no variation. She then texted her cousin. Kelsey told her, could you please take a look at these photos? There's a buyer that wants to buy the outfit, but she's concerned that the color pink is going to be off. So her cousin looked at the listing and assured Kelsey that she could see clearly it was a light pastel pink and the color matched every single photo. There was no variation, and it was clear that it's a pink color. A week went by. The buyer reached back out to Kelsey. She says, I've been pondering this for a whole week because the pinks just simply do not match my hairpiece for my daughter. So Kelsey said, well, perhaps you should move on and buy something else, or maybe go to a store and buy something, because obviously this is not going to work out for you if you're concerned about the exact color pink. And Kelsey was stern about it, but polite. She did not receive a response from the buyer. She figured the buyer had moved on. A week later, this is going on 2 weeks now after the initial contact from this buyer, she receives another email from the buyer. The buyer says that she would like Kelsey to take certain photos, and she was going to direct her how to do it, and then proceeded to take photos of the romper laying flat on the table. And the table was a cherry color. When Kelsey sent the photo, she never heard back from the buyer. She reached out to her cousin. She's like, I don't know what to do at this point. The cousin said, I would just block her at this point because this is ridiculous. Kelsey's like, well, I'm going to see what comes out of this. Maybe she will buy it after all. Maybe she's just being super picky about the color. Days went by. In the middle of the night, Kelsey received a message. When she looked at her phone, she realized it was once again that buyer. Kelsey looked at the buyer's message, and it said, now it's coming through my screen and it looks orange, and I'm not putting my baby in orange material. Kelsey wasn't surprised by this, but before morning came, she had a sale when she woke up. She looked at her phone, and it was the buyer. She did not buy the pink outfit that she spent weeks photographing for this person, though. She bought another romper, identical to it, but blue. Kelsey got her baby ready. She packaged up the item carefully, brought it to the post office, sent it off happily. 3 days went by. Surprisingly, it already arrived at the buyer's address. The next day, Kelsey received feedback. She looked up the feedback on her mobile phone for her account, and to her surprise and dismay, the customer left her a negative, saying this was one of the worst transactions she's ever had. The seller would not stop harassing her. The seller would not stop sending her message after message full of unrequested pictures and photos of a pink romper. When she did order the romper in blue, what she got was a totally different romper than what she ordered. Beware, do not shop with this seller. My thoughts about this type of harassment. The only thing I can say about this one here, I think some people are just plain jealous of others. She herself is a seller, and she takes people down that she doesn't want to see succeed, or she competes with, or maybe she has similar items and she doesn't like the fact that Kelsey is selling them for less than she is. My last and final story, number 10. Helen, in 2025, is on medical leave from work. She's had some health issues. She's a medical assistant, and she's on an extended absence. While on her absence, she decides to start going through old things around the house, gathering them together and putting them in different piles. One pile is donate, one pile is sell. In this pile, she has a little trinket box. She noticed that the same trinket box online was selling for about $25 with shipping. And she thought, oh, I had no idea I could get that much. So she listed her trinket box and she put it up there for $24 with free shipping. A day later, Helen received a question from a buyer. Being that she only had the trinket box and a few other things listed, she was surprised that anybody found her listings at all. The buyer question said, I'm in the market for this trinket box. I see you have it for $24 and free shipping. Would you accept $20? Helen was thrilled. She thought about it and she says, yeah, I'll take $20. But she realized she didn't have a best offer on the listing. She was surprised that this buyer even reached out to her because there were literally like 200 other trinket boxes, the same ones, online. Helen certainly wasn't the cheapest, and it wasn't the only one. So she went ahead and she put a best offer. She then contacted the buyer and said, thank you so much. I've put a best offer on the listing if you choose to buy it. Immediately, she got 10 responses from this buyer right in a row. Before she could even read the first one, she was getting other responses. So she goes ahead and reads every single message. And it was a repetitive message over and over, pretty much saying, well, did you make up your mind? Are you going to let me buy it for 20? Is that okay with you? Are you going to help me here? Or are you going to make me wait? When can you get back to me? And it was on and on. And it started giving Helen anxiety. Helen went to the kitchen and made herself a cup of coffee. And when she returned to the sofa, she had 5 more messages that were waiting for her from this same person. She set her coffee down after taking an initial sip, and immediately she felt acid reflux. She knew right away this person was giving her anxiety. She didn't understand why somebody would bombard her with emails like this through eBay. She couldn't fathom it. She read each message, and again, they were all the same gibberish. Well, this time, when she read the last message from this person to her, it said that she was unable to click the buy it now and needed Helen to send her an offer. So she reached out to the buyer and she said, I think if you want it, you should just hit buy now. The buyer immediately replied, shooting off 5 more emails in a row. The buyer said, if I hit buy it now, I won't be able to pay over time. I don't want to pay you all at once. I want to pay you over 4 weeks. And Helen thought to herself, well, that's the most unusual thing I've ever heard. So Helen replies one last time, thinking that this would solve it. She found an eBay help page that talked about the payments that a buyer could use on eBay, and she forwarded that to the buyer. She said, I hope this helps you. There's nothing I can do for you. But if you wish to purchase the item, please do as anybody else would and hit buy it now. Thank you so much for reaching out today. Ten more messages came in. The buyer claims she looked online and found different apps where she could purchase the item, but she would need Helen to sign up for the apps for her on her behalf. She saw one that required a credit application and asked Helen to fill it out. And Helen says, wait a minute, I'm not the buyer. You are. I'm the seller. I'm only selling things here. If you want the item, click buy it now. But I can't help you file a loan application or process a credit application. That's absurd. That's between you and the credit processor. The buyer reached out again. I want you to help me with this. I'm trying to buy your item. If that's okay with you, I would like to go ahead with the purchase. Is that okay with you? And her messages became more aggressive and aggressive and aggressive as each one rolled in at the speed of light. Helen couldn't even read them as fast as they were coming into her. Helen decided that she didn't want any further part of this. The last message she got from this buyer said, are you going to help me? I need your help. Please respond. So Helen responded and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. And she sent her the link to eBay's help page. She thought that would be the end of it. Later on in the day, she had not heard back from this person. She goes to get in bed. She's laying down. She hears a familiar sound on her phone. It's an eBay notification. This person had started up the emails again. Helen, sickly, not feeling well, just wanting peace and rest, now experiencing acid reflux, chewing Tums like they're candy, sees the questions from this buyer. And this buyer sent screenshots from another seller. She said, because you don't know what you're doing, obviously, I reached out to a seller with more experience, and they told me all you have to do is send me a private offer, and then I can accept it. But again, when Helen looked into this, it would bypass her immediate payment required. She responded carefully, tactfully, professionally. Said, thank you so much for getting that information for me. However, I think I just need to call eBay and get this resolved. And at that, she put the phone to rest and went to sleep. The next morning she woke up. She took down all of her items in her store, which again, there weren't many. But she did it because now she was afraid that this person was going to buy them all and leave negative feedbacks. An hour went by and she received more messages. Another 5 messages rolled in. And it said over and over again, "Oh, darn. It's sold out right from underneath me. What am I going to do now?" Helen was frightened. Helen didn't know what this person was going to do now, but clearly she had some issues. And Helen felt like, what is with this person? And how did she get a hold of me? Out of all the sellers online, she got a hold of me and she didn't understand what was going on. She wrote back and said, "I'm very sorry. I took the products down because clearly something's not working on my end and I wanted to prevent a mishap if a sale occurred." And then she proceeded to block the buyer. When she got out of eBay, she noticed in her email that she had 19 unread messages from the same person. But now, instead of the person using the username she picked, her profile picture was Helen's. When I heard that story, I was very baffled and I was very concerned by this. A couple thoughts came to mind. This is a generation, and it has been this type of generation for many years now, but it's a want it, buy it now generation. However, it's more than that. What I will say to the personality and the behavior of this woman who harassed Helen relentlessly, this is somebody who is very entitled. And that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. We are in a me generation, we have been for a while, of entitled people. I think it's something that happens when you're a child and your parents do not tell you no. They praise you over and over again, no matter if you do wrong, you do right. "Oh, I hit this little girl in class today. Good for you, honey." And I really think that's where this is coming from. The entitlement is so disgusting and thick. And I think that's where you'll see situations like this. If you are ever confronted, whether it's online, in person, if any of these stories fit something that happens to you, I want you to think about this. When people have egos that drive this type of behavior, whether it's something they learned from childhood because of treatment they received or not, or what have you, the gray rock method works. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's usually recommended when dealing with a narcissist. And basically, it's to remain completely monotone. Somebody reaches out to you and says or demands something from your online store. You tell them that, "Oh, you know what? I have to look into that. I have to look into that with eBay." If they are truly a scammer, it will shut them down because they don't want to be reported to eBay. They want to get away with what they're doing. With this woman in Helen's story, though, even telling her that she was going to reach out to eBay, it didn't work. Like, this woman kept pursuing Helen, got her personal information. It's quite scary. And to tone down the behavior of someone that's acting like this to you, you really have to just show no emotion. People like this feed on it. They feed on your reaction. They feed on your response. Helen should have stopped communicating with this person and blocked her right away. After hearing her story, I can totally understand why she chose to keep communicating with her, because she was giving her the benefit of the doubt. And that's where we oftentimes get it wrong. We think that people are good doers, we don't think of people as doing bad deeds, but in fact they do. People do bad deeds. So instead of thinking like, well, I want to give this person benefit of the doubt, stop doing that. And just think like, I need to protect myself first. I don't know what this person wants. I have no obligation to tell them anything. In fact, in all of these stories, whether in person or online, you have no obligation to anyone, ever. Therefore, always be gray rock. And that may look something like this. Somebody confronts you at your job. You're stocking shelves or you're cashiering, and somebody is completely rude to you. Don't react in anger. Don't react in spite. Don't react upset. You can choose to apologize or not. If you didn't do anything wrong, there's no need for you to apologize. In a monotone way, tell them exactly how it is. You're ringing up their produce, and you've rang it up, and they're spouting off the mouth at you. You simply look at them and you go, that will be $23 today. Would you like your items in a bag? Ignore this. The more we ignore this as a society, the less fuel it drives in the direction of this entitlement. If everybody band together and decided not to react to it, not to respond to it, and to just turn your head and walk away, we would have less people doing this. And I can tell you why that is. People don't like to be ignored. And somebody who's undisciplined and never got discipline from a parent and turns out entitled, when they're ignored, they're going to go off the handle because they don't know how to deal with that. But if we all did it, they would stop doing it. They would learn. As a society, as a whole, we have to teach people. We have to undo the entitlement in society. And that's how you do it. Thank you so much for watching today. Please leave a comment below if you've ever been harassed. And if you're looking to see maybe why were you harassed, I might be able to help answer that. Thank you so much. Take care.